thanks to the work of the FBI with support from really the entire U.S. intelligence community and the Joint Terrorism Task Force model in Michigan. That plot touched multiple states and had ties to ISIS inside Iraq and Syria. Another issue that we are addressing right now, thanks to the decisive leadership of President Trump, is the scourge of fentanyl, gang, and cartel violence. Under President Trump's leadership, we've designated these cartels and gangs as terrorist organizations, and we've done that rightfully so. These individuals, these terrorists, have killed hundreds of thousands of Americans, as these angel families will tell you firsthand. What President Trump has done by designating them as terrorists has allowed us to turn the tools of the intelligence community against them and predominantly watch list them as terrorists to prevent them from ever coming into America in the first place. To date, we've added about 35,000 of these narco-terrorists to our terrorist watch list, and we've stopped just around 6,000 of these terrorists from ever entering our country, from setting foot inside of America, so they can no longer kill Americans with impunity. These are just some of the issues that we're covering 24/7, 365 at the National Counterterrorism Center, and I look forward to discussing more with you all today. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Kent. And now recognize Director Glasheen for 5 minutes to summarize his opening statement.
Good morning, Chairman Garbarino, Ranking Member Thompson, and members of the committee. I'm Operations Director Michael Glasheen. I oversee the FBI's National Security Divisions. I am honored to be here with you, representing the people of the United States, the FBI, who tackle the complex and grave threats we face with perseverance, professionalism, and integrity. Our nation faces serious and evolving threats, ranging from international terrorists to hostile foreign intelligence operatives, from sophisticated cyber attacks to internet-facilitated sexual exploitation of children, from violent gangs and criminal organizations to public corruption and corporate fraud. Keeping pace with these threats is a significant challenge. Our adversaries take advantage of the internet, social media, and emerging technologies like artificial intelligence to influence the American people, facilitate illegal activities, and recruit followers. Even as 2026 marks the 25th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks, terrorism remains a persistent but evolving threat. Over the past several years, the FBI has identified a particularly concerning uptick in the radicalization of young people. Radicalization of domestic terrorists most often occurs online. Social media and encryption have increased the speed and accessibility of the violent extremist content. International terrorists continue to pose one of the greatest, most immediate threats to the homeland. Some international terrorists and people located and radicalized to violence primarily inside the United States who are not receiving individualized direction from foreign terrorist organizations or FTOs, but are inspired to commit violence by FTOs such as ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Iran continues to plot attacks against former government officials in retaliation for the January 2020 death of Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC, Commander Qasem Soleimani. Iran also continues to provide support to its proxies and terrorist organizations throughout the world, such as Lebanese Hezbollah. China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, and criminal ransomware continue to be the top cyber threats facing the United States. And there's no clear line where cyber criminal activity ends and nation-state activity begins. Critical infrastructure remains a highly attractive target for cyber criminals and nation-state actors due to the potential to cause widespread disruption, financial damage, and risk to our national security. The United States faces foreign intelligence threats as nations such as the People's Republic of China, Russia, and Iran become more aggressive and capable than ever. The PRC has deliberately created an environment that abuses global interconnectedness and encourages intellectual property acquisition using human intelligence officers, corrupt corporate insiders, foreign direct investment, and cyber intrusions. Russia continues to seek and acquire U.S. technologies to help rebuild its defense industrial base, relying on complex procurement networks to evade U.S. export controls and sanctions. The United States faces many criminal threats, including violent crime, financial and healthcare fraud, transnational and regional organized criminal enterprises, crimes against children, and human trafficking, violent threats against public election officials, personnel, and public corruption. Currently, the FBI-led task forces are staffed with over 9,000 federal, state, local, tribal, and territorial partners. Many of these task forces are focused on cartels, violent crime, drug trafficking, child exploitation, and human trafficking across our nation's communities. The FBI has and continues to establish strong capabilities to assess the threats, share intelligence, and leverage key technologies. We recruit the best to serve as special agents, intelligence analysts, and professional staff. Our leadership team views change and transformation as a positive tool for keeping the FBI focused on the gravest threats facing our nation. Over the past few months, we started the process to relocate hundreds of positions from the National Capital Region out to field offices across the country. This enhancement to field resources increases our investigative capacity across our 56 field offices and enhances the FBI's commitment to addressing violent crime, gangs, drugs, counterintelligence, and terrorism threats. Our fellow citizens look to us to protect the homeland from these threats. And every day, the men and women of the FBI continue to meet and exceed these expectations. I'm proud to represent them in testimony today, and I welcome your questions.
Thank you, Director Glasheen. My understanding is a witness may have to leave early today. While I want to be clear, the committee did not agree to a hard stop. All witnesses are here voluntarily and are free to go. If a witness does leave, the hearing will continue with the remaining witnesses. Members will be recognized by order of seniority for their 5 minutes of question. We want to get through as many members as possible, so even though I have been lenient before with the 5 minutes, I'm directing members and witnesses that we're going to strictly enforce the 5-minute rule today. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes of questions. Secretary Noem, I appreciate you being here today, and you've been on the job less than a year, and this is the second time appearing before the committee, which I think is the norm, and I do really appreciate you being here. And I know you have a very important job to do. You oversee a lot of different sub-agencies, so I know you can't always be here in person. And with that, as a committee, we still want to work with the administration and conduct our oversight. So I'm asking you if you can commit to making sure that in the future, if we want to have a hearing, you'll be able to supply maybe a deputy secretary or somebody to come to specifically talk about that.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
I really appreciate that communication, and I think collaboration between the administration and Congress is key. Secretary Noem, I also wanted to ask you, in September, the department under FEMA proposed new allocations for counterterrorism grant funding, which cut dollars to New York by 80% because of a new formula. Considering New York is consistently a top terror target, this was surprising. We're grateful President Trump restored this grant funding, and pursuant to the present direction, has the department increased the allocation to New York?
Yes, President Trump did. I would say that when we look at the Homeland Security grants and how they're allocated, the formula focuses on where we see the threats today and where those communities are that need the resources. I would also inform the committee and you, Mr. Chairman, that New York City at the time of the allocation still had over $440 million in reserve that was available to them to utilize. So the intention of these grants is that communities and cities would use the dollars to build up the security measures that they need to do for a long-term impact, and that the same amount of dollars aren't necessary every single year. You need to meet the threats where they are in the country at the time the grant dollars are available. So thank you to all of you for your work on getting us dollars that we can give to grants to help secure our local communities and states. But when we're looking at cities that have hundreds of millions of dollars in reserves, we recognize that giving them hundreds of dollars of millions more may not be appropriate considering all of the threats that we have. But President Trump has sent more resources to New York City. We'll continue to meet the threats head on because that is our mission, is to make sure that we're looking at every single threat that we have. The formula that we have considered and have put in place recognizes what came over the border, where we see the infiltration going, which communities are impacted, and what we need to do to harden our systems.
I appreciate that, Secretary, and I appreciate the work you're doing with the President. I appreciate his decision to send that increased money to New York. I have a question. since this is about worldwide threats, can you discuss what DHS's most significant concerns are today for the country?
I would say, Mr. Chairman, what keeps me up at night is that we don't necessarily know all of the people that are in this country, who they are and what their intentions are. We think up to 15 to 20 million people came in under the Biden administration on the invasion over the southern border. They were not vetted. They were allowed to pour in. Our parole programs, our asylum programs, our visa programs were all exploited, and the integrity was demolished under Joe Biden and the leadership at the Department of Homeland Security. And frankly, the entire department was neglected. In fact, I believe the secretary was told at times not to do certain things by the Biden administration to facilitate this invasion. So what keeps me up at night is the individuals that are in this country that wish to do us harm. And that is why we are so aggressive at making sure that we're going out and doing investigative work, finding those violent criminals, finding those people who shouldn't be in this country to begin with, and those that want to go after and to harm our American citizens.
Thank you, Secretary. Director Kushine, as you heard and as you said, during the next few years, the United States will host more major events than ever before. This brings up obvious security concerns, including counter drones, which we just passed some new authorities in the NDAA yesterday. How is the FBI preparing for counter drone threats during mass gathering events?
Chairman, thank you for that question. Counter UAS, the passage of the legislation yesterday is a game changer for us. How we're preparing for that going forward, we just stood up a counter UAS school down in Huntsville, Alabama, where we will train federal officials, state locals, as well to assist with that preparation and implementation of using counter UAS technology. Prior to this passage, it was only the FBI and or DHS that could provide that assistance. Now that this passage of authority, it will allow us to have a greater handling of the threat to a mass event.
Thank you very much. I yield back. I now recognize the ranking member for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Gladstein, will you tell me the organizations that pose on the domestic side, two of the organizations, number one, number two, threat to the homeland at this point?
Can you please clarify, like organizations?
Any domestic terrorist organization that poses a threat to the homeland as we speak?
I'd say the first one, President Trump had just announced executive order domestic terrorist organization, Antifa. That's our primary concern right now.
All right, that's what President Trump did. What does the FBI say?
We share the same view. When you look at the data right now, you look at the domestic terrorist threat that we're facing, right now, what I see from my position is that's the most immediate violent threat that we're facing on the domestic side.
So where is Antifa headquartered?
What we're doing right now with the organization.
Where in the United States does Antifa exist?
Yep.
If it's a terrorist organization and you've identified it as number one.
We are building out the infrastructure right now.
So what does that mean? We're trying to get the information. You say Antifa is a terrorist organization. Tell us as a committee, how did you come to that? Where do they exist? How many members do they have in the United States as of right now?
Well, that's very fluid. It's ongoing for us to understand that. The same, no different than Al-Qaeda and ISIS.
No, I don't want you. I'll ask one question, sir. I just want you to tell us. If you said Antifa is the number one domestic terrorist organization operating in the United States, I just need to know where they are, how many people. I don't want a name. I don't want anything like that. Just how many people have you identified with the FBI that Antifa is made of?
Well, the investigations are active.
Sir, you wouldn't come to this committee and say something you can't prove. I know. I know you wouldn't do that. But you did. Madam Secretary, you and the gentleman from NCTC reference the unfortunate accident that occurred with the National Guardsman being killed.
You think that was an unfortunate accident?
I mean,
It was a terrorist attack.
wait. Look, I'll get it straight. Then you can
He shot our
respond.
National Guardsman in the head.
Look, Mr. Chairman, will you direct the witness to allow me to ask my question? It was an unfortunate situation, but you blamed it solely on Joe Biden. I want you to know who approved the asylum application for this same person.
Mr. Thompson, this individual that came into the country.
No, I want to know who approved.
Congressman Thompson, I want you to understand.
No.
When this individual came into the country, he came under
I'm not going to let you.
evacuation of Afghanistan under Operation Allies Welcome, was thoroughly vetted by the Biden administration at that point in time, allowed into our country, and then was never followed up. I want to remind everybody in Congress.
Reclaim my time.
We follow the law, and every asylum is supposed to have a check-in every single year, and the Biden administration failed to do that. They vetted this individual, allowed them into our country, and did not do due
The
diligence.
witness will allow the gentleman to ask his question.
Yes or no? Who approved the asylum claim?
The application on the asylum was thoroughly filled out by information that was gathered by the Biden administration.
So the
His
Biden
asylum-
administration approved the asylum.
His asylum application was put into place under the rules established by the Biden administration.
Reclaiming my time. I don't want to file perjury charges against you, but I'm of the opinion that the Trump administration, DHS, your DHS, approved the asylum application.
The asylum application moved forward under all of the information and vetting processes that were put in place under the Biden administration, which is when vetting happened. And that's what President Trump has changed. Under President Trump's administration.
Reclaim my time again.
When
It's obvious you don't want to answer the question. Mr. Kent, you want a shot at it?
The individual was vetted to serve as a soldier in Afghanistan, and that vetting standard was used by the Biden administration as a ruse to bring him here. Had we followed the standard operating procedures for special immigrant visas, that individual and none of the Allies Welcome people would have come to America. That's on Joe Biden.
Gentleman's
just
time has
answer the-
expired.
That was the answer.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. That was a murder that took place in D.C. It was not an unfortunate incident. And those comments are effing disrespectful.
Who is that?
Expect better from the
It's not a valid point of order. I will now recognize the gentleman from Texas, the former chairman, Mr. McCall, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Secretary, great to see you. This hearing reminds me of the novel A Tale of Two Cities. They see it, the Dems see it as the worst of times, but I see it really as the best of times. And what do I mean by that? Under the Biden administration, 15 to 20 million illegal aliens, unvetted, as you indicated, came into this country. What I think most disturbing is Director Kent's testimony. 18,000 known or suspected terrorists got into this country under the Biden administration. That's why we impeached Mayorkas. I was one of the managers. He told his Border Patrol, you don't have to pay attention to federal law when it says shall detain aggravated felons. He disregarded federal law and says, you know what, may detain. It's discretionary. And guess what? We have thousands of aggravated felons now, or if not millions, in this country today. That was the worst of times. Let me go to the best of times. Most secure border I've seen in my 22 years in Congress. And I've dealt with this for a long time. Coming from Texas, being chairman of this committee, the daily crossings are 95% down from the prior administration. That's the best of times. Zero catch and release. My very first bill in Congress 22 years ago was to end catch and release. 22 years later, we finally have achieved that goal. That, Madam Secretary, is the best of times. An all-time record low. America is safer today. I feel so. And when I look at the Venezuelan vessels attacked, the president had every right under the Constitution, Article 2, international waters, cartels designated as FTOs, coming into our country to spread poison to kill Americans. If that's not self-defense, I don't know what it is. And then finally, Madam Secretary, thank you for taking out the shadow Iranian oil tankers headed from Venezuela to Cuba, getting around our sanctions that Congress passed. I'm finally seeing an administration flexing its muscle in this hemisphere, which has been neglected for so many years. So air, land, and sea is your charge. It's the military's charge as well. I see the land secure. I see the maritime borders getting more secure, and I applaud you for that. On the air secure piece, I chair the Special Events Task Force. That's FIFA, the Olympics, the 250th anniversary. Drones are the biggest threat as I see it. I see it in Ukraine in its conflict with Russia, and I see it across our border, and I see it at these events. If you could update me, and with the new NDA authorization to allow federal, state, and locals to work together to identify hostile adversary drones and take them down, can you tell me how that will impact your ability, Madam Secretary, to better secure these special events?
Yes, thank you, Congressman McCall, and thank you for your leadership. I understand you're retiring, and I'm sad about that. You've been a statesman. Thank you for serving with such dignity.
Thank you.
The counter-drone and drone technology that is out there today, frankly, our authorities haven't kept up with. And so thank you for that legislation. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to truly defend the homeland. Here at the Department of Homeland Security, we are going to be investing upwards to $1.5 billion into drone technology and counter-drone technology and mitigation measures that we can deploy not just across different NSC events or large-scale events that we're responsible for the security on, but also that we can use to partner with cities and states for celebrations and different things that they may hold as well. So we have the responsibility at the Department of Homeland Security for FIFA and the 11 cities that will be hosting the matches here in the United States, also the Olympics, the America 250 celebrations, also other national security events that happen, such as Mardi Gras and other events that are going on throughout the country. So this program that we will have will not only work within the events that the department is responsible for, but we will be able to sign agreements with states and cities to provide measures that they don't currently have. And we're working with the FAA as well to get what we need to be able to operate. And we don't want just to detect. We don't want to just monitor. We need to mitigate. We need to take these drones down. We need to.
If I could add, my time's going to expire. There is so much technology out there today, counter-drone technology, that I've been working to get into Ukraine to protect them from Russian drones that we can deploy at these events. I'd love to visit with you on that at a later date. And thank you for your service.
Yeah, thank you.
Gentleman's time's expired. I now recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Correa, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I agree with my colleague from Texas. It is a tale of two cities. Secretary Noem, Trump administration, you're going after the worst of the worst criminals, and we agree with you. The problem is 70% of the people you've arrested have no criminal record. You're going after non-criminal immigrants, U.S. citizens, and permanent legal residents. Donna Hughes Brown, Irish citizen, green card holder, 48 years in the United States. She also happens to be the mother of a U.S. Marine, sister to a retired Army colonel. She's in ICE detention since July. She tried to come back from Ireland, arrested, has been there since then. Her crime? She wrote 2 bad checks for less than $80 a decade ago. You arrested her, she's in custody. Her husband, Jim Brown, came to us and told us her story. Jim told us, I voted for President Trump because he promised to go after criminals in our community and not people like my wife. If I can, I'd like to play a video for you. Danny, you also voted for President Trump.
Yes, sir.
Why did you vote for him?
Because I was an idiot. 80% of the evangelical Christian people were lied to. if you really want to know the truth, and that's exactly what happened. They said criminal, and I believe criminals need to be off the street.
I just want to make sure people watching this understand who you are.
My wife and I, when we don't work, we're ministers. We help the needy. That's what we do. And that's who they're arresting.
Now, we've got Mr. Jim Brown before you. He's standing up. Hopefully you can talk to him a little bit. These people, Donna Hughes Brown, are not the individuals that should be deported. Another case, Narciso Barranco was beaten and arrested by masked agents while working as a landscaper. He's an undocumented immigrant, 30 years in this country, not a traffic ticket. Mr. Barranco is also the father of 3 U.S. Marines. 3 Marines. You want to make a movie of people like this. A man who comes to this country, instills patriotism in his kids. They swear an oath to serve and possibly give up their life for this country. We'll play a video on this as well, please.
Masked federal agents were filmed pinning a man to the ground and repeatedly striking him in the head and neck before putting him in an unmarked car. The man in the video has been identified as Narciso Barranco and is the father of 2 active duty Marines and 1 Marine veteran. The Department of Homeland Security said an illegal alien was arrested by Border Patrol agents after he, quote, assaulted federal law enforcement, adding that Barranco, quote, swung a weed whacker directly at an agent's face. Video shared by DHS and reviewed by CNN shows Barranco running with a weed whacker, but does not show him striking officers.
I also have with us today Alex Barranco behind you, a retired Marine. That's his father. And Alex, on behalf of myself, members here, I want to thank you for your service to our country, and we also thank your brothers for serving our great country. Thank you very much. Got another case. George Rete, 25-year-old, native of California, my home state. He's a U.S. citizen, Army veteran who served in Iraq. Well, on his way to work, he came to an immigration checkpoint, pulled over. I don't know where officers deployed tear gas on him, broke his car window, pepper sprayed him, and dragged him out of his car. An American citizen held for 72 hours without any charges, wasn't even given the opportunity to shower, to wash off that paper spray.
Gentleman's time's expired. I now recognize the gentleman from Mississippi, Mr. Guest.
Mr. Chairman, I have 2 articles I'd like to present for the record.
Unanimous consent.
Under President Trump, an agency intended to keep Americans safe has diverted resources from child abuse, trafficking, and terrorism to immigration enforcement. Second is this letter from my Orange County Sheriff, Don Barnes, essentially talking about all the individuals under Prop 50 referred to ICE, 2025 year to date, 50 of them.
Without objection.
ICE never showed up to pick them up.
Without objection.
Chairman?
I will
Chairman?
entertain,
Chairman?
UCs at the end of the hearing. I want to entertain all UC motions at the end of the hearing. We have witnesses. I want to make sure everybody has time. So if we do this now, we do have a witness has to leave. You're just going to be taking time from other members. But I will entertain UC motions at the end of this hearing. I now recognize the gentleman from Mississippi, Mr. Guest, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Secretary, it's great to see you again. Thanks for appearing before us again. I want to echo some of the remarks of Mr. McCall. I want to first thank you. I want to thank the men and women who serve under your command for the incredible job that you have done over the last 12 months. We have seen that you are active in enforcing the rule of law. We have seen a border that is as secure in our lifetime as we have ever seen. You mentioned in your opening statement over the last 4 years, we saw somewhere between 15 to 20 million illegal immigrants enter the country. Just looking at monthly statistical data, we know that under the Biden-Harris administration, that in December of 2024, that there were over 300,000 illegal immigrants who were encountered along the southern border in that month alone. Recent statistics by the Department of Homeland Security for October, the most recent statistics we have, show that the number of border encounters for October of this year under your leadership have dropped to 11,000, a decrease of over 95%. And so I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for the work that your men and women have done to protect our borders from illegal narcotics entering the country. We saw a press release the Coast Guard sent out this week regarding Operation Pacific Viper. And they mentioned a specific seizure that occurred on December the 2nd by the Coast Guard cutter Monroe, in which in a single incident of interdiction that the Coast Guard had the largest maritime interdiction seizure in almost 20 years, seizing 20,000 pounds of cocaine in an individual seizure. So I thank you for your aggressive actions in enforcing the law and for the incredible work that you and the men and women under your command are doing. I want to talk about, as we talk about threats, I want to talk about threats against law enforcement. Last week, this committee, we had a hearing. The hearing was entitled When Badges Become Targets. And during that hearing, we talked about the threats to law enforcement, specifically federal law enforcement, and even specifically within federal law enforcement, the threats toward ICE agents, the threats toward you and other members of leadership within DHS. We know that those threats and those incidents of physical attack have escalated dramatically, in some cases over 1,000%. And part of the driving force, I believe, behind those threats is what I refer to as rhetoric against law enforcement. And I brought this up last week, and I want to bring this up again with you and give you a chance to briefly address this. These are just roughly 10 of the statements that I was able to easily find online by elected officials, governors, mayors, in many cases members of Congress, where they were spewing what I believe to be very harmful statements toward law enforcement. Governor Pritzker claimed that ICE is grabbing people off the street and disappearing them, that our country is becoming Nazi Germany. Representative Crockett compared ICE to slave patrols. Representative Garcia referred to ICE as thugs. Representative Ramirez attacked ICE as a terror force, later a terrorist organization, and then later in the hearing said, let me be clear, the Department of Homeland Security, you can quote me on that, is the single biggest threat to public safety right now. Representative Tlaib said ICE is terrorizing our community, turning our country into a fascist police state. Representative Jayapal called ICE agents deranged and said it's inspiring to obstruct immigration enforcement. Governor Walz smeared ICE agents as modern-day Gestapo. Chicago Mayor Johnson accused ICE of being secret police and terrorizing our community. Representative Lynch referred to ICE agents as the Gestapo and nondescript thugs. And Representative Frost compared ICE operations to some of the worst horrors and crimes against humanity in history. And so, Secretary Noem, I'd like to give you a few moments to, one, address these statements and to speak to how these statements place the safety of our men and women of law enforcement at risk.
Thank you, Congressman Guest. I appreciate you giving me the chance to talk about this because I think the words that these elected officials have used to describe our law enforcement officers are horrific, shocking, and unacceptable. Every single American citizen should find the words that they have used to describe these men and women that took an oath to keep us safe unacceptable and needs to be pointed out that we are seeing the consequences of those words every single day by the violent attacks. 1,000% increase in violent attacks, 8,000% in death threats.
Gentleman's time expired. I now recognize the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Tanadar, for 5 minutes of questions. Please remember to stick to the 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Garbarino and Ranking Member Thompson, for having this hearing today. I know the American people have been demanding answers from this administration on their unlawful actions. So I hope we are able to get some useful answers from our witnesses today. Secretary Noam, this past May, I asked you during a congressional hearing if it was the policy of DHS to follow orders issued by federal courts. You said on the record, and I'm quoting here, "We are following all federal orders." End of my quote, end of your quote. Secretary Noam, you lied to me under oath that day. You lied to the American people, and you have betrayed the trust placed upon you in your role as Secretary of Homeland Security. You defied federal court orders when you refused to order the deportation flights to El Salvador in March to turn around. Federal courts have also found your department to have violated federal injunctions in your continue to send non-citizens on deportation flights, with some courts having called your orders unlawful. Secretary Noam, I just have 3 questions for you. 1, why did you lie under oath by saying DHS was following all federal court orders when they clearly were not?
Congressman.
Question 2, let me finish my questions. Question 2, why did you mislead the American people when you said that no American citizens have been arrested or detained by federal immigration agents? And my last question, number 3, Donald Trump said that your ICE agents haven't gone far enough. Do you think terrorizing American citizens and assaulting peaceful protesters isn't far enough?
Congressman, the Department of Homeland Security and this administration complies with all federal court orders. We always have and we always will.
Not true.
And we will continue to appeal. And, sir, I will even tell you that at the highest court, at the Supreme Court, the Department of Homeland Security in our litigation has an over 90% success rate in winning at the highest court in our battle against activist judges across this country.
Madam Secretary,
we will continue to appeal. And then when it gets to the highest court and we get a decision, it is proven that we are right, that we have been compliant. I will also say,
Madam Secretary, let me.
Do you want me to answer your questions or not?
I do, but let me. You haven't been telling us the truth. Look, there have been at least 170 known cases of citizens being arrested or detained by federal immigration agents this year alone. This is the truth. Are you lying to the American people right now by denying these reports?
When we are doing our targeted enforcement operations against criminal illegal aliens, individuals that are in that area may be detained until we verify who they are, and then they are released. This has been done for years, and every single law enforcement operation that has always happened, we follow the same protocols, and we continue to do that. We have never once detained or deported an American citizen. We have not held them and charged them. When we find out and verify their identity, then that is when they are released. You also asked about ICE agents going far enough. Sir, I will tell you that every single ICE agent, CBP agent, federal law enforcement officer that's out there doing their work every day, none of them will rest until our communities are safe. None of them will rest until terrorists,
Secretary, no, it is a fact that you ignored federal orders.
And our children and our grandchildren can grow up.
Let me reclaim my time here, please. Let me reclaim. Secretary, no, it is a fact that you ignored federal court orders in March and in May of this year. Do you plan on ignoring more federal orders?
We always
I'm sick of your lies. And the American people demand the truth.
Because you keep saying it doesn't make it true.
I am sick of your lies. The American people are sick of these lies. American people demand truth.
America is very happy that finally they have a president in the White House that gets up every day to keep them safe.
Madam Secretary, your incompetence and your inability to truthfully carry out your duties of Secretary of Homeland Security, if you're not fired, will you resign?
Sir, I will consider your asking me to resign as an endorsement of my work. Thank you very much.
I yield back my time.
Gentleman yields back his time. I'll remind members that they are entitled to ask questions during their time. Witnesses are entitled to answer those questions. Members are entitled to reclaim their time. So if we're going to have questions and answers, please allow it. You can reclaim your time if you want, but witnesses are here voluntarily. Please at least give them a chance to answer the questions that you're asking. I now recognize the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Pfluger, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and it's unfortunate that our colleagues on the other side of the aisle for 5 straight years now have no concern for anything worldwide threats-wise, and have proven that. We're supposed to be talking about worldwide threats, but unfortunately, we're talking about homeland threats in our homeland. And Director, can you just reaffirm the number for us of people that match the terror watch list that are in our country?
There's 18,000 known and suspected terrorists in the country right now that came in under Joe Biden's watch.
18,000.
18,000.
That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable.
And that's just what we know of, Congressman.
Secretary, despite even members on this committee that have called our law enforcement and ICE and DHS and Border Patrol and other agents names and slandered them, I support you and I support what you're doing to secure the homeland. The Working Families Tax Act allocated $13.5 billion to the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Justice to reimburse states for the cost of the Biden-Harris administration's open border policies. No state suffered more than Texas. Fentanyl, drug and human trafficking, violent crime, stress on local emergency response services caused substantial damage to my district, to our state, to my constituents, to people that live and work in Texas. And in response, our state launched Operation Lone Star to secure the border when the Biden administration abdicated their responsibility to do that. We built miles of border wall. We had other barriers. We deployed state troopers, National Guard to deter the invasion that we suffered during this time period, which cost our state over $11 billion. And so as part of this Working Families Tax Act, we allocated $13.5 billion to reimburse those states. Last month, along with our senators, I led the Republican Texas delegation in sending a letter to you and Attorney General Bondi highlighting this and requesting that the state of Texas be fully reimbursed. And I wanted to get a status on that reimbursement today.
Yes, thank you. And we still to this day remain incredibly grateful to the state of Texas for their leadership during that time. That was challenging times, devastating times for what we saw happening down there. And Texas stepped up in a way that was absolutely incredible. So yes, those dollars are being formulated and allocated. If you remember, many states deployed their National Guard down there. I was governor of South Dakota at that time, and my National Guard was deployed down there as well. So reconciling the costs for every single state and looking at that allocation, we're making sure we're doing due diligence to make sure that it's appropriated correctly.
And just to be clear, I want to make sure that that money does come in the form of the reimbursement to Texas.
That's what we're working with the White House on doing, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
When it comes to what Director Kent talked about, these 18,000 people, can you give us an idea of who these people are, what type of threat they pose to us? We saw it wasn't some accident. This was an assassination and a murder. It was not an accident, despite my colleagues saying that it was an accident. It was a murder and an assassination of a National Guard hero. So what other types of threats are you tracking and preventing from happening?
Yeah, I would say, sir, that we face the terrorists that we've faced for years in ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Hamas, individuals that are here that are radicalized, but also we face the cartels as they've infiltrated our country under the last administration, their proliferation of human trafficking, drugs, and violence, going after Tren de Aragua as well, MS-13. Those individuals are still a very real, clear danger every day on the streets, and we encounter them, arrest them, and deport them and bring them to justice each and every day. Beyond that, sir, you even have gangs in cities that are localized that are terrorist organizations. The Latin Kings in Chicago are absolutely terrorists to their communities, and we work every day to make sure that we're protecting those communities. So I could not prioritize one over another because they're all killers. They're all killers, and they all are destroying families each and every day.
For both you and Director Kent, do terrorist organizations around the world, such as ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and others, still have an intent to attack America, to attack our homeland, to utilize every method?
Absolutely. Our intelligence and our information that we deal with every single day is addressing those threats on our streets here in the United States.
Director Kent, can you give us an idea of what those tactics, techniques, and procedures could be that we need to stay alert of?
Honestly, the attacks of October 7th, the decentralized and just barbaric nature of that is the new terrorist playbook. They're not looking necessarily for a spectacular attack like we had on 9/11, but targets of opportunity like we tragically saw with the terrorist attack in Washington, D.C., these smaller cells or even individual operatives taking action. That's what has us very concerned, combined with just the sheer volume.
My time has expired. Secretary, thank you for your commitment to reimburse Texas. I yield back.
gentleman's time's expired. I now recognize the gentleman from Rhode Island, Mr. Magaziner, for 5 minutes of questions.
Madam Secretary, how many United States military veterans have you deported?
Sir, we have not deported U.S. citizens or military veterans.
I don't believe you served in the military. I haven't either, but I think you and I can agree that as Americans, we owe everything to those who have served our country in uniform, particularly those who have served in combat. Do you agree with that?
Sir, I believe that people that are in this United States that are citizens have legal status here. Those
Madam Secretary, we are joined on Zoom by a gentleman named Se-Jun Park. He is a United States Army combat veteran who was shot twice while serving our country in Panama in 1989. Like many veterans, he struggled with PTSD and substance abuse after his service. He was arrested in the 1990s for some minor drug offenses, nothing serious. He never hurt anyone besides himself, and he's been clean and sober for 14 years. He is a combat veteran, a Purple Heart recipient. He has sacrificed more for this country than most people ever have. Earlier this year, you deported him to Korea, a country he hasn't lived in since he was 7 years old. Will you join me in thanking Mr. Park for his service to our country?
Sir, I'm grateful for every single person that has served our country and follows our laws.
Can you please tell
And knows
Mr.
that our
Park
laws
why
are
you
important
deported
and
him?
Every one of them needs to be enforced.
But you understand that many veterans struggle with PTSD, many veterans struggle with substance abuse challenges. This man took 2 bullets for our country. You have broad authority, by the way, as Secretary, to issue humanitarian parole, to do deferred action. Will you commit to at least looking at Mr. Park's case to see if you can help him find a pathway back to this country that he sacrificed so much?